Tuesday didn't feel like an ending. It felt like any other day. I came home at 6:18 p.m. The sun was low behind the hills. My backpack still held the final drafts for the client walkthrough we'd scheduled that weekend. The place was quiet, lights off, curtains half drawn. That wasn't unusual. She liked coming home to dusk. But the silence was too clean. No shoes by the door, no keys in the dish. The faint lavender scent she always sprayed on the couch. Gone. Then I saw it. A sheet of paper on the kitchen island, folded once and weighted down by a mug. Her handwriting, left-leaning, small, controlled. "Elias, I'm sorry. I can't keep pretending. This isn't your fault. I need something different. Please don't try to find me." Her key was taped to the bottom. I didn't touch anything else. I didn't call her. I didn't call anyone. She hadn't taken everything. Just the things she couldn't replace. Her passport, a few framed prints, her mother's necklace. Enough to disappear without breaking the furniture. Her name was Talia Rowan. We had been together for 6 years, engaged for 1, lived here for 4. We'd already picked the venue. A cliffside vineyard in Carpinteria. High bluff, wild grass. Ocean light at golden hour. It was my idea. She said it felt cinematic. She said it felt like us. I hadn't known she meant me, her and Aaron, my best friend. Or at least the man who'd stood beside me through job changes, near bankruptcy, and that entire year I spent rebuilding my business after losing a key investor. He knew everything, including how much I loved her. He helped me plan the proposal. He stood behind the camera when I got down on one knee. He gave a toast that night, called us the forever type. 2 weeks after she left, I received a photo. Blurry. Candidat. Forwarded from a mutual friend who hadn't realized I was still in the dark. Aaron and Talia laughing on a balcony in Mexico. Champagne between them. No room for regret. I didn't reply to the message. I didn't ask questions. I just stared at it for 12 seconds, then deleted the thread. That was the last time I looked back. I didn't yell. I didn't vent. I didn't post. I archived our engagement photos. Boxed up the flatware she picked. Sold the ring to a jeweler I trusted. The deposit on the vineyard, I left it alone. I could have canceled it. Could have clawed back the money, or at least put it towards something practical. But something told me to wait. Not out of hope, out of precision. Because some betrayals don't need confrontation. They need structure. I never confronted Aaron. I never called Talia. I let the silence grow around them. Let them think I was paralyzed. Let them believe I was broken. But I wasn't shattered. I was reorganizing. Because when someone steals your future, you don't mourn the fantasy. You replace it on your terms. And quietly, without anyone watching, I started drawing new blueprints. It arrived exactly 11 months after she left. Cream envelope, no return address, embossed lettering, heavy cardstock, like it was trying too hard to feel expensive. At first, I thought it was a misfire, one of those automated mailers sent to old lists. I nearly tossed it. Then I noticed the handwriting, not a label, handwritten. Elias and Talia Hart. She hadn't just left me. She'd left as me. I opened it without ceremony, no pause, no breath held. Inside was a wedding invitation. Talia Rowan and Aaron Lorne request the pleasure of your company. Saturday, May 14th, 4:30 p.m., Vinewood Crest, Santa Barbara. Reception to follow. I read it twice. Not out of disbelief, just precision. They had used the same venue, the exact one I reserved, the one I found, the one I paid a deposit on the fall before she left. They hadn't even changed the time slot. Saturday at 4:30. Golden hour. She took everything I gave her and repackaged it for someone else. And to make sure the humiliation felt complete, she left my name on the envelope. They wanted me to see it. Or worse, they didn't even think twice about it. Aaron always had that quality, careless with details that didn't benefit him directly. Talia, on the other hand, had no excuse. She knew that I booked that vineyard. She toured it with me. She helped me pick the chairs, the menu, the tasting notes. The only thing she never helped with was the ending. Until now. I placed the invitation on my desk. I didn't tear it. I didn't toss it. I just set it there beside the contract copy from last year's deposit. It hadn't been canceled, which meant she either thought I wouldn't bother checking, or that I couldn't. Either way, she was wrong. I called the venue the next morning, got the new coordinator. Young voice, nervous. Probably hadn't been there when I toured. I didn't tell her who I was. I asked about booking options for the same weekend, just to see what was still technically available. May 14th, she repeated, clicking her mouse. We're fully booked that Saturday, unfortunately. We've had it reserved for about 9 months now. I smiled into the phone. Understood, I said. Could I speak with your business manager? Not about the wedding, about a purchase inquiry. She hesitated. We don't usually. It's about acquisition, I said calmly. You'll want to escalate it. 10 minutes later, I was forwarded to a man named Lucas, silent, older, direct. The kind of voice that had already done the math before you finished your sentence. I kept it simple. Off-market offer, I said. Asset-based. No need to change management. I'm not trying to run weddings. I'm just particular about who gets married there. There was a pause. Then, send a number. If it's serious, we'll talk. I sent a number. He called back in less than 24 hours. We scheduled a site visit the following week. No one saw me walk the property. I came during off hours, dressed like an investor. Lucas didn't ask why I cared about that date. I didn't tell him. The vineyard looked the same. Same wood fence, same curved stone arch. Same overlook where I once pictured our first dance. It wasn't sentimentality, it was recall. I wasn't reliving anything, I was repositioning it. I stood at the exact spot where I once imagined Talia in a white dress. Now all I saw was opportunity. She wanted my silence. She used it to replace me. Now I'd use that same silence to erase her plans. 2 years earlier, I had stood at that very vineyard under soft cloud cover and a light ocean breeze, shaking hands with the owner while handing over the deposit for what was supposed to be my wedding. 15% down, fully refundable within 6 months. I never asked for it back. The invoice sat in my archived email, time-stamped, labeled, and unread for almost a year. I hadn't looked at it since she left, not out of pain, but because I knew the day would come when I'd need the numbers. It was Vinewood Crest that betrayed me almost as much as she did. Because when I booked that venue, I told them the whole story. The proposal, the timing, the vision. We were going to keep it minimalist. Just 75 guests, string lights in the olive trees, jazz trio at sunset. And someone, probably new, had let Talia Rowan and Aaron Lorne walk through the same gates and say, "We'll take it." Maybe they thought no one would notice. Maybe they didn't care. But I did. I reviewed the contract I had signed, then pulled the new wedding listing from a public vendor calendar. Their name was on the docket. Same date, same hour, same venue coordinator I had once emailed photos of our color scheme to. This wasn't coincidence. It was occupation. So I made the call to Lucas. He didn't ask many questions, just requested proof of funds. I wired over a clean file, portfolio summaries, intent letter, and my lawyer's contact. 2 days later, I received the offer sheet. Partial equity acquisition of the parent property with control over private booking operations for designated dates, beginning May 1st. Translation: I now had a say in what happened on May 14th. I didn't cancel the wedding immediately. That would have been theatrical. I waited. I reviewed the guest list through a backdoor planner link I got from a freelance coordinator I once worked with. She was new to the wedding, but not to the industry. She didn't care who was getting married, just who was paying the deposit. I asked her flatly, "Do they have backup plans?" She said no. They were overconfident. Already sent invites. Already booked a string quartet and a gelato truck. No second option. No contingency. Of course not. They thought they were untouchable. They were two people who believed their cruelty would go unnoticed, that their version of love was above consequence, that people like me, quiet people, would just watch from the sidelines and whisper wishes of luck. But I wasn't wishing them luck. I was buying the field. The more I saw their plans, the more tactical I became. The florist. I bought out her weekend and gave her a double booking in Napa. The chair rental company. I offered a 3-day gig at a corporate retreat in Big Sur. Same dates, better pay. The lighting tech. I hired him through a Shell LLC for a private event and told him to hold the date open. None of it made a sound. No emails bounced. No cancellations yet. Just tension building under the surface. 1 week before the wedding, I walked the property again. Lucas joined me. "I take it this one means something personal?" he asked without looking at me. "No," I said. "It's just business." He smirked and nodded. "That's the best kind." I left nothing undone. The only thing I didn't touch was the weather. Forecast, 72 and clear. Perfect for a different kind of event. Back at home, I took the original invitation and slid it into a new envelope, one with my name on the return corner. Inside, I added a second card. Simple ivory cardstock, printed with one sentence. "You'll want to inform your guests before they arrive." I sent it by courier. No signature, no message, just information. And 7 days later, I waited. The offer itself wasn't complicated. Lucas had inherited Vinewood Crest from his father, but hadn't touched the business side in years. He let coordinators handle the weddings, let accountants track the bookings. He didn't care who stood under the arch, as long as the checks cleared. That made him easy to approach. I didn't come in as myself. I came in through a holding group, a shell company I'd formed the month after Talia left. I named it Mariner West Holdings. Clean. Forgettable. No link to my name or my past. I emailed him from the account tied to that entity. "Interested in purchasing partial equity on short notice," I wrote. "Not interested in operations, just in select blackout privileges." Then I attached the account balance. I knew the number would do the talking. It wasn't revenge money. It was investment. A fraction of what I made after I sold my share in the design firm I co-founded. The one Talia told me I worked too much for. The one Aaron once said was too niche to scale. The one that later got acquired by a European group for a clean 7-figure deal. Lucas responded the same day. "Let's walk the property before we sign." I flew down on a Thursday morning and met him before the grounds opened. The place looked the same, olive trees trimmed, paths swept, the horizon wide and merciless. He asked no personal questions. I liked that about him. We stood by the overlook while he smoked half a cigarette. "You want to kill a wedding?" he asked bluntly. I met his gaze. "I want to control who uses this space, that's all." He nodded once. "Fair enough. You'd be surprised how many people think marriage is a clean transaction. This place eats people like that." We shook hands. No press, no announcement, no trace. By contract, I now held control over 4 key dates, May 14th among them, and all adjacent services tied to those dates: rentals, vendors, sound. Not cancellation authority. Control, a more elegant kind of power. I sent no message to the couple. Not directly. That wasn't the point. Instead, I moved sideways. The florist's availability changed. The chair vendor mysteriously dropped out. The parking contractor they'd arranged with lost his weekend crew to a double booking issue. Each exit was handled with grace. No red flags, just soft no's and apologies. I made sure every fallback they tried quietly redirected to companies I had already reserved or owned. Claire helped, of course. She managed the coordination, the logistics, the calendar cross-checking. She didn't ask for reasons. She just executed. "I assume this is personal," she said once, while forwarding me a receipt from the lighting vendor I'd rebooked for a fake private event. I said nothing. She didn't press. The week before the wedding, I visited the venue again. This time, mid-morning. Quiet. Warm breeze rising off the hillside. I brought the contract with me. Had Lucas walk it with me line by line, especially the section on booking reversals for force majeure, vendor failure, or ownership intervention. I didn't need to use force majeure. I had control, and control doesn't shout. It whispers. I left the paperwork intact, untouched. Let the original booking stand, up until the moment it mattered. They still thought they were getting married there. They still thought the biggest problem would be seating charts or weather. But the real issue had already arrived, signed, sealed, and filed under an entity they'd never heard of. By the time they realized something was off, it wouldn't be with a bang. It would be with locked gates, and a silence even they couldn't misinterpret. By the Monday before the wedding, the silence had weight. I hadn't moved, hadn't called, hadn't sent a single message. But the coordination team at Vinewood had. Emails began to stack, vendor questions, timeline confusion. One florist sent a follow-up. "Can you confirm delivery time?" I was told the order's been canceled. That's when Talia finally broke the silence. She called at 8:42 a.m. on Tuesday. I watched the screen flash her name. Then I let it ring. 3 minutes later, a text arrived. "Hi, we're having issues with the venue. Something changed in the contract. Could you call me when you get this?" I didn't respond. They weren't asking yet. They were guessing, reaching. By Wednesday afternoon, Aaron finally left a voicemail. His voice was casual, but the edges were tight. "Hey, Elias, look, I know this is weird. Talia said you might have had something to do with this mix-up. I'm hoping it's not what it looks like. If it is, can we talk like adults? I think we all want the same thing here." I listened to it twice. The second time, I smiled. What I wanted was never the same thing he did. Thursday came with more emails, coordinator confusion, timeline failures, cancellation flags. Claire forwarded one to me from the parking manager. "They're calling nonstop. Want to know if they can still drop buses by 3:30. She added no commentary. She didn't have to. By Friday morning, it was done. Lucas filed the internal directive. Facility closed for private use. Full access denied until further notice. The language was clean, legal, cold. He sent it to the coordinator, who forwarded it to the couple at 10:03 a.m. They didn't have time to recover. No venue, no sound system, no chairs, no backup plan. At 1:45 p.m., Talia called again. This time I answered. She didn't waste time. You bought it. I didn't say anything. You bought the venue, Elias. Why? Still nothing. I'm not asking you to approve. I'm not even asking you to forgive us. But this, really, you could have just said something. You didn't have to nuke the whole thing. My voice was flat. I didn't nuke anything. I just made sure the deposit you didn't return got used. She exhaled, angry now. You always think silence makes you smarter than everyone else. No, I said. I just know silence lasts longer. Then I hung up. I drove up to the ridge overlooking the vineyard that evening. No signs, no markers, just a turn-off road only locals knew. From there, you could see the whole bluff, the arch, the gravel lot, the flower delivery truck that sat idling for 30 minutes before giving up and turning around. No music, no guests, just scattered confusion. I saw Aaron arrive around 3:50, pacing by the locked gate, phone in hand. I saw Talia 10 minutes later, still in her dress, hair pinned, hands clenched, standing beside a white sedan with tinted windows. I watched them argue. He pointed at the venue. She pointed at her phone. I didn't need to hear a word of it. Because the best revenge doesn't require volume, it requires timing. And they were right on schedule. I waited until 5:01. Then I turned off the car, backed away from the ridge, and left them there, just as they had once left me. No closure, no answers, just a cliff with a locked gate, and a name on the deed they hadn't bothered to ask about. They came dressed in summer linens and soft blush pastels. A charter bus pulled in at 4:12 p.m., 30 minutes late. Most of them assumed traffic had delayed the event, not canceled it. A few circled the parking lot twice before stepping out, glancing up toward the hill where no music played and no signage welcomed them. The gate was closed, chain-wrapped, padlocked. There were no staff members, no florists, no hosts. Just a single printed sheet taped to the wrought iron. Closed for private use. No entry permitted. One guest tried calling the venue number. Disconnected. Another pulled up the event invite and tried to reach Talia directly. No answer. A third, older, overdressed, confused, asked if this was a prank. It wasn't, it was a correction. I parked 2 ridges over and watched from a distance. A few guests wandered to the edge of the property, where the coastal wind picked up and lifted pieces of confetti that had been left on decorative tables days earlier. They swirled up and away, unclaimed. The gelato truck never arrived. The string quartet never left Los Angeles. The chairs, the lighting, the backup speakers, they were all booked elsewhere now. I made sure of that. Their freelance coordinator, Jenna, I think, stepped out looking like she'd been handed a grenade instead of a clipboard. Her face said everything. She pulled out her phone, likely dialing Lucas. He wouldn't pick up. He'd already executed the transfer paperwork. Ownership silence was part of the contract. No press, no blowback, just private control. By 4:51 p.m., people began to leave. First the older guests, then the couples with toddlers. One bridesmaid threw her heels into the trunk of a car and slammed the lid hard enough to rattle the frame. Talia and Aaron hadn't shown up yet. They waited until the last possible minute. Drove up in a black car around 5:06 p.m. He got out first, white dress shirt, navy suit, tie already loosened. His hair was styled, but the sweat was breaking through. She stepped out second. No veil, just the dress. Ivory silk with a low back and structured shoulders. A statement piece. Something she thought would demand attention. It did, for the wrong reasons. She stood frozen in front of the locked gate, bouquet trembling just slightly in her left hand. Aaron tried calling someone again. Talia stared straight ahead at the sheet of paper. It wasn't until she noticed the handwriting on the corner of the closure notice that I saw her expression change. Lucas had let me handwrite it, just the first name. Reserved. E. She read it 3 times before reacting. Her hand dropped to her side. The bouquet hit the gravel. She didn't cry. That's not the kind of woman she is. But she looked up at the hill, toward the empty bluff where we once stood together, arms around each other, planning the future she'd later reroute. And I think, for one brief moment, she finally understood what it felt like to be replaced quietly. Aaron said something to her, low, urgent. She didn't reply. A car pulled up behind them. Claire. She got out, past them without a word, and walked up to the gate to ensure the lock was still in place. It was. She looked over at me on the ridge. I nodded. She got back in her car and drove off. I stayed until the sun dropped, watched the light fade from the olive trees, watched the shadows climb up the hill and bury the arch in gold and gray. They eventually left too. No ceremony, no kiss, no applause, just the sound of tires crunching gravel, and silence, which, in the end, is exactly what they earned. The call came at 11:16 p.m. I saw her name flash across the screen. Not her number, her name. I hadn't deleted it. I wanted the reminder. She'd been quiet for hours. No follow-ups, no apology texts, no blame. Just this, late, tired, and reaching. I let it ring. The second attempt came at 11:19. This time she left a voicemail. Her voice sounded different, controlled, but fraying. Elias, I don't know what you thought you were doing, but if this was some kind of punishment, congratulations. You made your point. You embarrassed both of us. I replayed the voicemail once, not because I needed to hear it again, but because I wanted to hear the way she emphasized both. As if this was shared, as if we were still tethered in some mutual humiliation. We weren't. I archived the message. Then I turned off the phone. The next morning, I stood in the same kitchen where she left the note, exactly 1 year and 5 days before. Same counter, same light, same quiet hum from the fridge. I made coffee. No thoughts, no music, just silence. Then I pulled out the invitation, the one that started this final chapter, and laid it beside the original contract from the vineyard, along with the handwritten closure note with my initial. I took one envelope, clean white stock, and wrote 2 names on it in black ink. Talia Rowe and Aaron Lorne inside. I placed the wedding invitation they had sent me. Addressed to Elias and Talia Hart. She hadn't just left me. She'd mailed that envelope under my name, wearing it like a souvenir, as if she was never done being me. But this time I had crossed out both names, not just hers, not just mine. Then I sealed it and dropped it in the mailbox with no return address. That was the final message, not a threat, not a warning. Just a record. They no longer existed where they once tried to overwrite me. I didn't celebrate. There was no moment of gloating, no dramatic monologue. I simply got in my car and drove past the vineyard one last time. Lucas had the crew resetting the event lawn for a corporate retreat that weekend. He spotted me, gave a nod, and turned back to his clipboard. There were new names on the schedule now, new plans, nothing tied to May 14th, nothing tied to Talia or Aaron or me. Because some revenge doesn't scream, it just reorganizes the landscape. She didn't just lose a wedding. She lost the illusion that she could take my name, take my best friend, take the life I built, and use it for her own. Now she can't even say the venue name without remembering that it no longer belongs to her story. It belongs to mine, and I'm not sharing.